friends, and welcome to my weekly reset. So one of the things that I wanted to do was take some time to plan out my week with you and kind of show you how I walk through the process of planning out my week and getting ready for all the things that we want to do. So while we go through this, I'm going to be talking about a couple different things. I'll be talking about my budget, about my goals, I'll be talking about what I'm reading, and just some of the highlights of the things that I'm trying to accomplish in my week. As I go through this, my heart is that you will also pick up your planner and go through this with me, because part of what I try to do on the blog and on the podcast is I want to help us see the place that we're at and try to reach for the people that we want to be. And so I think one of the crucial things we need to do each week is have a process that is a weekly review, where we look at what we are currently doing and try to set our sights on the people that we want to be. And so if we can bridge that gap, then we can walk forward and actually reach our dreams, reach the people that God is calling us to be. We can walk forward in that. But if we never have this intentional time to sit and look at what we are doing, then I think we really kind of struggle with the people that we want to be. So the first thing that we're going to do is just talk about one little highlight from the past week. So this past week, me and my kids, we went to a little creek area by our house and they got to play there. And it was just, for them, it was the highlight of their week. They just kind of calmed down. They noticed the butterflies that were flying around. They noticed the dragonflies by the pond. And so that was something that was so, life-giving in the midst of all the busyness that we are having in our life right now. One of the things that you'll hear with this is I want this to be authentic, and it is just very real. You'll hear the sounds of my kids behind the camera as they play with their Play-Doh and walk around. And so that's just part of real life, and I know that you probably feel that way too, where it's hard to find quiet moments, but we don't have to wait for things to be quiet to get started. We can start right now. So let's start with some of the goals and habits that we want to achieve. One of the things that I had created, and you can find it on the shop, is my Cultivate Workbook. And basically what this workbook is I take my yearly review that I do at the beginning of the year, and I try to put it into action. And so my yearly review, one of the things that I wanted this year to be is just to try to be more intentional with my routines and my time to really create the life that I want to have. And so as I tried to brainstorm what this would look like, I thought about some of the aspirations that I had in my life. So in my Cultivate Workbook, basically what this is you go through and you find the people that you want to be. In Atomic Habits, one of the things that he talks about is how we all have these aspirational identities that we want. We want to be organized, we want to be clean, we want to be thoughtful, we want to be good friends. But all of these things, none of these things are actually measurable goals. Instead, they're just aspirations that we have. And so we want to take a goal from that. From these goals, we can create habits. And our habits are the things that will actually help us to reach those aspirations. So if I want a clean house, the first thing that I have to do is every day I need to be working on cleaning my house. I need to follow those habits. And so what I first do whenever I'm looking at my goals for the week is I try to break it down. And so I'll show you what that looks like. So this is the Cultivate Workbook. So basically this takes those ideas from Atomic Habits and then it applies them to the 12-week year and connects all of those ideas. And so you can see some of my tactics. So I have three goals. So I have a goal to work on a children's curriculum that I'm using for my church and that is on my shop. And then I also have a goal to work on healthy living, and then a goal to do kind of like a Sunday hospitality lunch at my house. And so a part of what is going into that is I have created tactics that you just saw, and then I have these progress tracking pages. So I take my weekly planning pages and then I apply them to the goals that I have established for myself. And so you can see this is my week 1. And so you can see my tactics. So these are basically just a habit. So a family devotion every night that I've created to go along with that curriculum, an hour on the curriculum that I spend working on it, and a church lesson. So you can see kind of like this past week, because of the things that I had going on and some of my other goals, you can see for my first goal, the Kingdom Way curriculum, that I only achieved a 40% execution score. And so the way that I figured that out is I just look at each day. So I have 5 days of the family devotion and only did 2 of them. And so 2 divided by 5 is 40. And so that is a 40% execution score. Now the 12-week year, what he says is you want to get an 80% execution score. And so if you don't get that, then you know that you're probably not going to be moving on that way. But the thing is, anytime that you are dealing with habits, you know that sometimes you don't have balance. You just want to have alignment. You want to have where you are working on the things that matter to you. And so you can see down here, there were times I'm moving up towards 10,000 steps, but this is for my health goals. I never met the 10,000 step mark, but I realized, oh wow, I need to work on that. My normal day, if I'm just kind of hanging out around the house, is I normally get about 5,000 steps. And so even if I, walk for 30 minutes and try to add, a mile or 2 to my day, I would need to do that twice a day to get to that 10,000 steps. And so it kind of shows me that I need to be a little bit more active. And so now as far as treats and stuff goes, I did do pretty well with that. And so I'm working on to get to these goals, but I was kind of assessing where I was last week. Now, one of the things that I did do that was a big goal was to create this health planner that I created. It's on the shop. I kind of polished it up last week. And so I finished that up. It had been my goal for a while to do that. And so looking back at this week, some of the things that I can say for like a weekly reflection is the things that felt life-giving was definitely my power hour in the morning. This was something that, I tried to work on one of my goals each day in the morning. And so it just so happened that was the health planner last week, but I kind of knocked out a lot of the things that I wanted to do for my shop in the morning. Something that challenged me was definitely trying to get those 10,000 steps and just trying to stay active. And so I realized, I really probably need to work in some more conscious movement throughout the day, even more than just exercise. I don't think I would reach those 10,000 steps, even if I did do like a 30-minute exercise. I need to add more throughout the day. And so something that I want to focus on this week is I want to add in morning and evening movement to my day. And so then the last step that I need to do is I need to update my progress tracking page. So if I take these out, some of the things that I added here is I added my tactics to the page. And this again is an idea from the 12-week year, but I've kind of adapted it to this workbook. So I can look right here. So I did do my church lesson. So I did do that. So that was 100%, but I only got to 40% of my 5-day devotions at home. And then I did 0% of working on the curriculum. And so you can see because of that, basically none of these things got done on the curriculum. But if I look at my health goals, I didn't meet my step goal. I did do my move time about 4 times last week, and I met the calorie under those calories about 1 time. I don't think I'm going to do the garden, but my products are already done and published. So I got 2 of those products. So that's done for all of these weeks. So I've done that. So then this week I'm going to go ahead and add in my goals for this week. So this is the Faithful Body goals. And so one of the things is 10,000 steps. And I got close yesterday. And then I want to do the under 2,000 calories. And this week I want to do intentional move time. So basically just exercise time. You can hear my dishwasher going in the background. I always feel like the sound of the dishwasher, it may not be the best for this video, but it's one of those things that I love to hear. So the planner I use is the PPP planner, or the Passionate Penny Pincher planner, and I love it because it has so many good pages to work on. And one of the things that I especially love about it is it has all of these checklists. So you have checklists for each day of the week. You also have like a main task that you need to do each week. And then you have... So I went ahead and added in some of the things that are going on this week. Some of the other things that I want to do is just make sure that I add in my habits that I want to make sure I have each day. So for instance, right here, this 10,000 steps, I can add in, and I can also add in a planner check. Because one thing I found is a lot of times you can have like the best planner in the world, but unless you touch the planner and actually use the planner, then you don't get to do the things that you need to do. So this week, like today, I can go ahead and put shower, made beds, start laundry, plan and prep dinner. And so what I'll do is I'll go on and keep working on it throughout the week. So one of the other things that I think is so important each week whenever you think about planning is thinking about what you're reading right now. So one of the things I just finished out with my reading life is The Water is Wide by Pat Conroy, and it was a really great book. It's a book about his life whenever he went and taught on an island off the coast of South Carolina. And so it talks about the racial tensions there and just kind of his experience as a teacher. And so I thought it was a good book. I honestly love him as an author, so I think anything by him is good. And then for the other book, normally whenever I am doing my reading in the morning, I always try to read 20 pages in the morning as part of my morning routine. So normally what I do is I wake up, do my Bible reading, then I try to read 20 pages of a theology book and 20 pages of like a fiction book like this. And so the theology book I'm going through right now is The Deep Things of God by Fred Sanders. And this book, it's focused on the Trinity. And so for me, it's me trying to read it to try to understand how other people think about it. But, you know, I'm reading it trying to figure out some of the truths that I can glean from it. And so I think it's interesting how he frames, you know, the sacraments and different things like that. And so I'm currently reading it. I'll talk more about what I think about it whenever I finish it, but I'm about 20 pages from the end. And then I just started The Magnolia Story by Chip and Joanna Gaines. I'm trying to go through all of the books that I own, and so this is one of the ones that I own. I do like Fixer Upper, but I know that they've kind of changed as time has gone on and as they've had success. But it's interesting seeing them and how they explain their life story. So that's my fiction or storybook, my narrative book that I read in the morning. And then the other thing that I'm going through is I have my Faithful Homekeeper. So this is one of the PDFs that I have on the shop. And so this book is about, this workbook is focusing on basically creating a home that you love and going through the process of organizing and decluttering your home. And so I am working through this myself because I actually created all of the things that are in this workbook several years ago whenever I first stayed home from teaching. And so, you know, I came into my home, I wanted it to feel like a home. And so I started going through this process and I created the things that I have in this workbook. But what I noticed is as I was formatting it for this, putting all of the resources together in one PDF, I found that it's like, oh my goodness, I need to do this again. And so I'm working through the process of looking at the spaces that I have and trying to create the story that I want people to take away from my home in those spaces. Because I will tell you, as you add more kids to your home, as you continue to just, add and add and add to your life, it's very easy for your life to begin to take shape, a different shape than what you really want it to. And so that's something that I'm realizing now, is that I had created all of these rhythms and routines and, organizing all these spaces the way I wanted it to look. But with 3 kids now in this home and doing homeschool and all the life here, it's definitely taken a different shape. And so those are some of the things that I'm reading lately. And then before I wrap up, one of the things that I want to close with is just a kind of reflection on what I feel like God has been teaching me this week. And so as we go through these each week, my goal is that you are able to kind of get a glimpse into my budget, into my home rhythms, into some of my goals, the things that I'm reading, and just a little bit of my life. And so the last thing that's central to my life is looking at the rhythms of faith that I have. Every morning, I get up, I make my cup of coffee, and the first thing that I do is I try to sit down and read my Bible. And so one of the things that I have been reading recently is just the Psalms. Every morning I try to read one psalm before I go about my day. And so one of the things that I read this past week, I'm on Psalm 24, and it talks about the King of Glory. In Psalm 24:1, it says, "The earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants, belong to the Lord, for he laid its foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers." It goes on and it says, "Who is this King of Glory? It's the Lord. He's strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, you gates, rise up, ancient doors. Then the King of Glory will come in. Who is he, this King of Glory? The Lord of armies. He is the King of Glory." And I was just thinking, so many of us, we focus on these traits of God and we talk about how God is loving, or, the flip side, a lot of us now are leaning more into this idea of, God being this just God. But I was thinking yesterday about God being the Almighty, and just that phrase, the Almighty. He is almighty. He is so powerful. He created the world and he owns everything in the world. And we talk about this with stewardship, but I think, for my prayers, this is something that is just a truth that I can ground myself in who he is, which he is mighty. He's mighty in battle. He's mighty in our lives. And so when we bring all of our prayers to him, it's never a question of, can God do these things? Because he's mighty and powerful to do them. And so I hope that as you look at your week and you look at the habits and rhythms and all the routines and everything that you're feeling, as you look at your budget, and I've definitely felt this in the past several months, looking at these things where you feel like there's just too much. And how could you make everything fit, make everything work, make all the ends meet? But we can trust that God, he is mighty and he is powerful, and he meets us where we're at. So I hope that you've enjoyed this time together. This is my weekly reset, budget, books, goals, meals, a little reflection. And I hope that this time that we spend together impresses on you that, all it takes is just a few minutes to reset your week and establish your goals. But if we don't have a plan, and if we don't have a vision, if we don't have focus, we'll never get anywhere. But it only takes a few minutes to set those plans in place. If you want any of the resources that I've talked about, you can find them in my shop at morebeautifulcollective.com/AMBL shop. Don't forget to subscribe so we can reset together next week.